So back to, as I was saying, the evaluation workshop, I was asked to put something together. And for me, the evaluations are what have helped me improve as a speaker more than being in competitions or doing manual speeches, pathway speeches. That might not be the same for everyone, but that's the importance of evaluations for me. It's where you really start to understand how things are put together, how a speech is put together, what makes it great. You know, it's a little bit like a car. I know a nice car when I drive it, but I don't know how it works. But of course, if I was Mike Burrows, I'd tinker under the bonnet and work out how it works and make it work even better. I'd fine tune it. So this evening, we're going to go through a slightly different agenda. So we've got to do some introductions. Then we're going to set the scene. We're going to let you share your experience because you're a big part of this evening. Then you're going to have some practice. Then we're going to share some insights, which is a little bit of kind of me sharing some thoughts around how we can all improve on our evaluations. We'll have a break. Then you get to do some reflections, which will be the second breakout group. If you've not been in a breakout group in Zoom before, Mike will explain that as we get to that point. Then another bit of practice and reflections, which in the final iteration has got 2 eyes in reflections, which I don't think is correct. So that's where we're going to go this evening. So let's just get started, shall we? So this isn't going to be your standard Toastmaster workshop. I'm not saying Toastmaster workshops are no good. I'm not saying Toastmaster workshops are brilliant. I'm not saying anything about Toastmaster workshops other than this is the only slide that I've picked up from Toastmasters International just to set the scene. I'm not going to read it, but I'm just going to let you have a look at it for a moment. I'll make all these slides available to Mike in case any of you would rather look at the slides than the video. So look, for me, an evaluation is very personal. It's only what I think. If you're giving an evaluation, it's only what you think, feel, and have experienced. It's not the absolute truth. It's not perfect, but it will be what you have experienced. Your evaluation is there to help the speaker, to help you, and to help your audience who are listening, all to learn from what you have experienced. So, with that in mind, you probably can't see the 5 on the end there because I've got a ribbon of, you can. This is for you just to reflect a moment. I don't want this to be shared. I'm not going to ask you to share it. So 0 to 5, what I'd like you to consider, just take a moment. You might want to write it on a bit of paper, or you might have a post-it note, or you might just keep it here. I'd like you to consider how you rate yourself as an evaluator from 0 to 5. Okay. Hold on to that because we're going to revisit that a bit later. So Mike is now going to split you into breakout rooms. And before you go, I just want to run through this slide with you. So you're going to have 5 minutes. So for the next 5 minutes, I'd like you to share with the other 4 or 5 or 3 people in your group your experiences of evaluation. So evaluation as in what you've learnt when evaluating, what you've learnt when being evaluated, so what you have learned from your evaluators. And please, when this 5 minutes is over, we're going to share from each of the groups your thoughts. So just on those questions, we can't share the screen while you're in a group, but what Mike has done and will do is share those points on messages. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, I will.
Okay, over to you then, Mike.
So I'm sending people to the breakout rooms now. Right, George, I can still see you. I'm just setting up. I didn't get the right bit set up for this. Right, I've just broadcast the message, George. If I make you a co-host, which I'm just doing, you should be able to move around the breakout rooms, I think. If you want to move around the breakout rooms, George, what you can do is click on the breakout rooms box if you've got it, and then you can join one if you need to. I don't know if you noticed, George, but Alex joined us just as we were about to go into breakout rooms. Yeah, you were muted by me somehow or other.
I wonder why you weren't listening to me, answering me.
I just moved my cursor over your bit and it said unmute, and I realised that somehow I'd muted you. That wasn't intentional.
Right. Are you going to be able to join a group now then, Mike?
I'm not sure I'm going to
Don't worry, you can't.
I tell you what I didn't do. I didn't set the bloody clock going, did I? Too many things to do at one go.
I don't think anyone will be looking at the clock. We can tell them how long they've had, can't we? Probably had a minute, haven't they?
Yeah, so I'll give them 3 minutes from now, and they're going to get, I think, a very generous 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got my iPad's in a breakout room, but the timer, which is what it is the 5th person. So there's still a meeting room with 4 in that one. So that worked out well.
Too much technology, mate.
Yeah. I'm going to have a quick whip round the breakout room. So be back to you soon. Great. Everyone's in a breakout room apart from yourself because you've only just joined us. They're just about to come back.
Hello. Let me rename myself.
Breakout rooms are closing in 41 seconds, George.
Okay.
Ten seconds. Here they come.
Are we done, Mike?
We got one, two, there's two people with their cameras switched off, include one of them being you, George, and
Okay.
everyone else is back in the room. We've got 19 people altogether.
Thank you. So what we'd like to do now is just share, perhaps one person from each of the groups could share with us some of the thoughts that came out about evaluations in terms of what you've learned as an evaluator or having been evaluated. Who'd like to go first? Carl? Mike?
Carl, you're muted.
He
You'll
knows,
speak.
Mike. I think he knows we can't hear him, doesn't he?
Oh, you're muted again, Carl.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 No. Right, start again, Carl.
I'm just explaining that I've got a bus, so hopefully you can't hear the bus in the headphones. So, okay, just bear with me, it's distracting. So, we looked at both questions, but I'll just cover the first question. Learn when you're being evaluated, or so when you are actually evaluating. For me personally, it's being organised. It's capturing, having that ability to actually have that active listening and also writing down what you're observing as well. And the other observations from the group, which was David Pinter, Simon and Natalia, is that Simon said you have to think that the evaluation is a speech, so you should always have a beginning, middle and end. It's good. And Natalia hasn't actually done any evaluations as of yet, but suggested maybe prepping yourself with descriptive words, which you can then circle, or have sentence starters, so that when you do come to provide that evaluation, you've got yourself there prepped already. That's me done, George.
Lovely, thank you very much, Carl. Thank you for that group. Who would like to go next? Which group or people from which group? Harry?
Thanks, George. So I was with Mel and Alex, and I'm just going to pull out one thing that we talked about quite a lot, and it was the importance of a framework for doing an evaluation, whatever that framework is. Because Mel said that when she was evaluated by Gareth, he used a score sheet and provided that to her afterwards, and it was an official Toastmasters score sheet, but I hadn't actually seen that before. So whether or not you use that or something else, just having something to help you think through what you're going to look for can actually be really useful and set you up for a good evaluation.
Was there any other thoughts from your group, Harry?
Feel free to jump in if you want, guys.
I think that was really important for me to have that score sheet, and I think that will help me in my speeches going forwards, but it will also help me, say like Natalia, I haven't done an evaluation role yet. And I think that will really help me to understand, you know, to give my evaluation some structure.
And there's one last thing actually before I move on, and that's sometimes it feels like you're an imposter when you give an evaluation, especially if you haven't done many speeches yet. You sort of think, who am I to be delivering this evaluation for somebody, you know? But actually, when you remember it's just your opinion of it, it's a little bit easier to do.
Okay, thank you for that, Harry. And thank you for that, the group. It's interesting framework and being organised has come up from both those first two groups. So which group would like to go next? From one of the other two groups.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things we felt was, reiterates what Carl said, it can be extraordinarily difficult to observe everything that's going on in a speech whilst making notes of it. So it demands tremendous concentration to do it well. It would certainly be easier to record a speech and be able to play it more than once to pick up all the points. Obviously impractical on a single evening, but I'm sure you could do better evaluations. As Harry said, there is a feeling that, oh dear, what right do I have to critique someone's speech? Obviously, we can put this as politely as possible, just merely making a suggestion rather than a definite recommendation. And the other thing is okay, if you're saying something like there were rather too many ums and ahs, that's fair enough, but it can be very difficult, particularly with reasonably experienced speakers, to come up with something that's clearly an improvement as opposed to a reflection of your personal taste. So that can be quite a challenge. I don't know if anyone, so Veronica and Gemma, I don't know if you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I'm here, but not on video because I'm cooking in the kitchen, guys. Sorry. What I would like to add is about pausing.
Oh,
So for me, I find it, really difficult in the moment to sometimes collect all your thoughts and observations and then put them together concisely so the person being evaluated actually gets some benefit. So for me, as I said, moving forward, learning how to pause effectively during my evaluations to allow for that process to happen is something I want to practice more. Thanks.
Thanks, Gemma. Was there someone else from your group, Richard? Did you ask?
Veronica was in it. I don't know if she had anything else. No, Veronica indicated that she was happy with what's been said.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much. And is it one more group, Mike? Who else from another group?
There were 4 groups.
Okay. Brenda, which group were you in?
I'll speak. There was Raina and Barry in my group. So things that haven't been said, encouragement. So it's good to have that, you know, a recommendation in between 2 commendations to, you know, to give the encouragement. And something we all remarked on was how time goes at a different pace for the speaker than the audience. So about remembering pauses and things like that. So anything else you two would like to add?
Yes, Yeah, I've never evaluated. I'm new to Toastmasters, but just to offer a different perspective I've spoken before publicly, but until coming to Toastmasters, I've never been in a situation where there's been someone in front of me with a pen and paper making notes on my performance. So it's terrifying, but it's a privilege to know that there's someone in front of you focusing on what you're saying. And I've been evaluated once and I got some really rich feedback, and I found it extremely useful, and I'm looking forward to having the chance to evaluate myself at some point.
I think in addition that what I found, it's quite sometimes difficult to enjoy it because you are focused in like dissecting it. So you can't really like enjoy the talk. That's my opinion, because you're focusing in finding positive things that you need to say and recommendation as well.
Yeah. Thanks, but some really, really cool stuff there. Thanks, Raina. Was there another group, Mike? That's everyone. Did anyone else have anything else to say before we move on?
Veronica?
I would, if it's fine. Sorry, it's not really connected into what was discussed in the group, but what was discussed afterwards. And it's the negative connotation of feedback, because everybody was speaking about telling people what they're doing wrong. And what I personally find amazing about Toastmasters is that if people are telling you what you're doing wrong, they're doing it with the good intention. And that's why we're trying to deliver the feedback in a very positive way.
That positive intention is definitely something that's embedded in Toastmasters, Veronica. Yeah, thank you for that. Any more? If not, we'll move on. Okay, cool. Right, now then, we're going to give you a chance to do an evaluation. So while I'm just about to share the next screen, I hope you've all got a pen and a pad at hand, because I'll tell you what's going to happen next. I'm going to show you a speech. It's a 7.5 minute speech, and I'd like you to evaluate it. And at the end of that speech, we're going to pick 3 lucky Toastmasters to share the evaluation. Don't worry, I won't pick on anyone who really, really doesn't want to do it. But what I'd like to do is show you this video and give you a chance to do an evaluation. So whilst you're getting yourself ready, there's one more slide just to prepare you for it. And I know that Rich, hang on a second, let me just find it. Okay. I know Simon will appreciate this next one, and it links into what Veronica was saying just now. So when you're doing your evaluation, the only tip you're going to get on this occasion is commendation, recommendation, commendation. So there's a balance, isn't there, of right and why. These are the things I recommend you do, and why. So there's no limit, by the way. So just to kind of make it 2 to 1, really, would be my advice on that. So let me find you the video. So I'm going to ask you to watch the following clip and then be prepared to evaluate in front of everyone on its conclusion. When the speech is over, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to complete. As was said just now, sometimes it's difficult to concentrate on the speech, but when you're in a club meeting, you would normally get a little bit of time to reflect. So,
Ramona J. Smith, still standing, Ramona J. Smith.
Life will sometimes feel like a fight. The punches, jabs, hooks will come in the form of challenges, obstacles, and failures. Yet if you stay in the ring, from those past fights, at the end of each round, you'll be still standing. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow fighters, can you think of a time when life tried to knock you down? Who was your toughest?
Sorry to interrupt, but I don't think the video can be seen.
Most often,
David,
our
thank
most
you for that. Can
challenging
anyone,
opponent
Raina, can you see the
is
video?
ourselves.
Nobody
No.
can, George.
No.
Okay, sorry folks, I thought you were watching the video. Okay, well, very good if you were doing a verbal evaluation. Let's see if we'll get that back for you. Let's have a look. Mike and I practiced this earlier and managed to get it to work, so let's have another go.
Yeah, you need to use it from the YouTube link.
Yeah, right. Just hold on a moment, everyone.
Ramona J.
Okay, so now I ought to be able to go to my share. There it is. We're going to find this. So here, try this again. Mike, can I ask you, can you see that yet?
We can see the evaluation slide. Do not click on the report button, otherwise we'll just go back to the sound. You need to be clicking on the actual source link.
Yeah, which is what we did last time when we went through it, Mike, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, let's have one more go at this then. Let's stop and start again. Bear with us. It's not appearing this time, Mike, in the... Mike, when I did this last time, it appeared in the...
It means you haven't got the screen open.
George, can I give you a hand?
Yes,
I think I've got the video here. You want me to share it for you?
Well, just
Ramona.
David, you might be able to help me. I can see the video, but I can't seem to share it with you. Do you know why that might be?
I think it's maybe because you're only sharing your slides rather than your whole screen.
Okay, fair enough. So is there something I need to do on that then, David or Mike?
You need to close your screen. When you go to the share screen, you need to select the video, not the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and that's what we did earlier, but it's not on the, there it is, it's there. Okay, I think
there you go.
That's it.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, those of you that were doing this verbally only earlier, well done. But you can start again now by watching the video. Mike Burrows, will you shout if there's a problem?
Yeah, I will.
Smith, still standing, Ramona J. Smith.
Life will sometimes feel like a fight. The punches, jabs, and hooks will come in the form of challenges, obstacles, and failures. Yet if you stay in the ring and learn from those past fights, at the end of each round, you'll be still standing. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow fighters, can you think of a time when life tried to knock you down? Who was your toughest opponent? Most often, our most challenging opponent is ourselves. Round one, college. I dropped out of college not one, not two, not three, but 4 times. I told myself, college isn't for me, and I would never go back. Round two, marriage. I married my soulmate, the love of my life, my best friend. And he was fine too. We were married for 8 long, beautiful, amazing months. You heard right, months, not years. It was like immediately after we said I do, the heavyweight champion came in and delivered an electrifying knockout blow to our vows. Boom! Divorced. Round 3, speaking. In 2015, I competed for the first time in the international speech contest. I won at the club level, I won at the area level, I won at the division level, then the district level was on the way, I was on the road, I was on fire, I was unstoppable. I lost. I was crushed. After going 3 rounds and taking hit after hit, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was down for the count. 6, 7, 8. When was the last time life knocked you down? Who was that lifeline that you reached out to help you stand back up? Was it your family, your friends, or did you hold on to your faith? Maybe you've never been knocked down, but you've seen one of your family members take a devastating blow. Were you the lifeline that they were reaching out to help them stand back up? Were you the coach in the corner saying, get up, stand up? As I gathered all the strength within myself to pick myself back up and stand, instead of looking into a mirror of defeat, it became a window of possibilities. I got back in the ring. I went back to college. I got my degree and I graduated magna cum laude. Yeah. After failing 4 times, I was still standing. After my loss at the district level, I'm speaking to you from the World Championship stage. It's a moment. Thank you. Thank you. Even after suffering loss, I'm still standing. As for my marriage, I'm still in training. I have not yet found Mr. Right, but this is an international convention. And there are thousands of men from hundreds of different countries. So single Toastmasters, even after my divorce, I'm still standing. My challenge to you is to stay in the ring, whether you're a fighter or a coach. If you're on the side of the ring coaching, or if you're in that ring throwing those jabs and those hooks, when that final bell rings, ding, 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 the fighters and the coaches will raise their hands in victory singing, I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're still standing. Very nice. Stay in that ring. And even after you take a few hits, use what you learned from those previous fights, and at the end of each round, you'll remain still standing. Mr. Content Share.
Ramona J. Smith.
Okay. Okay. So Mike's going to put 2 minutes on the clock now. And when the 2 minutes are up, can you give us a green light, Mike?
Time's up, George.
Myself. Okay, thank you, Mike. Righty-ho. Okay, so what we'd like to do now is see who would like to do an evaluation. So hopefully everybody did that evaluation. I was wondering if one of our experienced members would like to go first. What about Richard? Would you like to go first, Richard?
Yeah, okay, I will go first.
By the way, before you start, Richard, it's the usual timing. We're going to fit 3 of you in, so we'll keep to the time, but there's no prizes tonight, so no pressure.
Okay, all right. Thank you, George. Now, my first observation is that this is a great story. It relates constantly to the audience. It brings the audience in. It really is a story of hope. And it struck me that it totally absorbed the audience. And so I'm not altogether surprised that it won. Now, this was accompanied by some terrific vocal variety. You'll have noticed that when she talked about the sadder moments of life, her voice slowed down and it was more solemn sounding. Whereas when she was talking about the more uplifting moments, she was getting very excited and exuberant, reflecting the mood brilliantly, I thought. And I just loved the way that she was able to really appeal to the audience. It was terrific at the end when she started singing "I'm Still Standing" and got the audience to say, after she said "we're still standing," that's one example of how she really got the audience involved and got them to do the refrain of "yeah, yeah, yeah." It's terrific. Now, one recommendation, it's very hard to give any realistic recommendations here, but do all speeches have to refer to Toastmasters? Is that obligatory in order to win? Can you think of any speech that's won a competition that hasn't referred to bloody Toastmasters? But I just wonder if it's really necessary. But I guess from her point of view, there are 4 parts of her life, and that leads me into terrific humour. Am I out of time already?
Go on, give us your final couple of points, Richard.
Yeah, the humour was terrific. I loved the bit about the marriage and a great, fantastic 8 months. Humour throughout. So, fantastic speech overall. A worthy winner, I am sure. Back to you, George.
And thanks, Richard, for going first and giving us a great evaluation. Please give Richard a Toastmasters virtual hand clap. Thanks, Richard. Who would like to go next? Hands up. Oh, we've got Mel B would like to go next. Okay, so one of our newer, less experienced Toastmasters. So really looking forward to this one, Mel. So when you're ready, please, Mel, give us your evaluation.
Thank you, George. So what an inspiring speech from Ramona. She really captivated us from the start. The way she jumped onto that stage, hands ablaze in front of her, ready to fight. And that was an excellent example of the fantastic stage presence that she had throughout her speech. As I said, the gestures were just amazing. And I guess one recommendation from me for Ramona would be just be careful not to overdo those gestures. She was moving around the stage quite a lot and at quite a pace. And at some points I did find that just a little bit distracting. So that would be my first recommendation for Ramona. She's obviously a very confident speaker, and you could tell that. She used a number of different techniques and tools throughout, the use of repetition, the change of pace, wonderful vocal variety, the use of rhetorical questions that really drew in the audience. And as we saw, as she recited a well-known song and the audience joined in with that without her having to prompt. Also, a fantastic use of humour throughout. I particularly enjoyed the bit where she was trying to find her next husband. And overall, a very well-structured speech. So very clear modules, and she talked about, both her failures and her successes, which gave her speech a fantastic structure throughout. So very well done, a very worthy winner. Well done, Ramona. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well done, Mel. Give Mel a big round of applause. Mel, can you put your speaker back on? You're muted. Was that your first ever evaluation?
Yes.
Not bad. Very well done. Give her another round of applause. And it was a world champion. No pressure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. I think David Pintor was waving frantically, and as he gave me some IT advice, I think I should only give him the opportunity to give his evaluation next. So David, if you're ready, over to you.
Thanks, George. Yeah, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to evaluate her, although it's quite hard really to find anything. So I'm gonna start by saying, yeah, I found that obviously from the start, you notice she's really confident and she's got great body language. She's full of energy and you know, I was thinking the same, that you could think that she could be slightly off-putting by overdoing too much. But actually, I didn't think it was off-putting. I think she has a very strong presence. And even with all the gestures and all the running and all the singing, you know, you just love it because she's like, I don't know, she does it so naturally that I really enjoy it. And it's great to see how able she is to engage with the audience as well. Next thing that is pretty obvious, the humor. She kind of surprises us a couple of times with, you know, by saying things a bit unexpected, like the 8 long, beautiful months, or at the very start when she goes, fellow fighters. So, you know, gets people laughing straight away and listening to her. I thought the whole speech was great as well because he was themed with this like fighting and punching, you know, throwing the towel. You know, she's got all along is about this theme, and also very graphic. You know, when she says like electrifying punch, and you know, you almost can't see it. Overall, I thought that it was quite well structured. She goes very clearly from college, then to marriage, then to speaking. And I kind of like how she goes back to the first point and talks about college and it's a success. And you're actually expecting that she's going to go second point success, so we have to vote for her. She's going to be the winner. Actually, she kind of turns a little bit, but she brings more humor with like, I'm actually working on my marriage and so on. Yeah, and that's great, the bit that she sings as well in the end. And it is so good that you actually just want her to keep speaking, really. That's how engaging it is. So very well done.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Now then, the big reveal. I lied to you. We're going to have 4 evaluations. I'm not going to pick on anyone. Put your hand up if you'd like to do one. Kenny, would you like to do an evaluation? First one with your hand up. Just need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Kenny. I don't know you. Are you from Bristol Central?
This is my first visit, so
right, okay.
Apologies for being cheeky and just brassing it.
Well, no, that's fine. So you've got the gist of what everyone else has done, yeah?
Yeah. And I thought it was a great speech. What really stood out, I think, I would have advised her to relax a little bit more. I could feel the tension, but I'm not surprised. I would probably be absolutely petrified going out into a world championship. But I suppose that's something that she will certainly master over time. She's a very confident speaker. I can just follow up what everybody says, where she starts with a boxing example. And, you know, usually the boxing analogy, the first 4 rounds really tells whether somebody's going to last or not. And they're usually down by the 4th if, you know, if they're really kind of, if there's going to be something happening after the 4th, it just becomes a slog. So that was a great analogy there. She did engage the audience. She kept a kind of philosophy theme going right the way through about the analogy of the fight of life, and you know, you never know what's going to come around the corner and all that kind of stuff, and that you just keep going. And even if you fail, you can get up and you just keep going until the end. And bringing in the humor at various points to keep you going. And I think I like the way that she used the whole stage rather than just standing still. I thought that was really good because we do live in a very visual society. And I think we've got to remember that if you're just standing there, I've really listened to some really great speakers, but sometimes the tone of the voice can send me into a coma. And I have to really force myself to listen to this really great content. And I'm just thinking, oh, whoa, I think I'll just get myself another whiskey there to boost up my my listening skills. But she engaged at every level. It was really fantastic. Again, the only criticism I would have is just to relax a little bit. You know how confident you are, and she even sang in tune at the end, which was, you know, real bonus. It was great. All the bells were good. Yeah.
Terrific. And thanks for that evaluation, Kenny. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Toastmasters virtual applause, I should say. Okay, we've got time for one more before the break. Who's it going to be? Carl's twitching there. Alex is nodding. Brenda's got her finger up. Brenda, are you going to have a go? Brilliant. Okay then, Brenda, when you've unmuted yourself, we'll have an evaluation from Brenda of our world champion. So over to you, Brenda.
Well, what a world champion class of speaker that was. And you notice what she did very first of all. She took time as she came out onto the stage to feel the stage, to look at the audience, to smile, and to make that golden connection. The smile is the way to get the rapport. And that rapport paid dividends, the time spent invested there, because when she sang and she invited the audience to yeah, 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 what could they do? They couldn't help but join in. She'd made that connection. The structure of the speech was very elegantly done, with setting out the different rounds and then the callback. It bookended because she came back through those, albeit in a slightly different order just to keep us on our toes, but she bookended it very, very, very nicely. Her gestures were timely. They matched not just the words, but the syllables of the words. And here's my recommendation. Along with a few other people, I found them a little bit forced, a little bit too staccato, and a little bit more flow, a little bit more joined upness of those gestures would have delivered a little bit more for the speech. And I found that in a great contrast to the flow that came with her delivery in terms of the vocal variety, in terms of all those Toastmasters tricks and hints, lots of threes with alliteration, the family, the friends, the faith. But it was so eloquently tied together. The metaphor of the fighting was tied together. It remained throughout. So it was an excellent vehicle of delivery. Brilliant congruence. Deserved winner. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this feels like an evaluation contest. There's been such a high standard of evaluations. I hope you've all noticed that. There's no evaluation of the evaluators tonight, you'll be pleased to know, but I've made loads of notes. And one thing that you may have noticed, because we very rarely get so many people evaluating one speech in one session, unless it's a competition. One of the things you might have noticed is there's quite a lot of commonality, but there's quite a lot of difference as well in the way people experience those speeches, or that speech, I should say. And that calls back to the point I made right at the very beginning, that the evaluation belongs to you, and it's what you think, and the way that you deliver it will determine the way that it's received. And I think we've had some really lovely delivery this evening. It's just a shame we haven't got the world champion here to hear it all. Okay, we're now going to have a break. I make it 20:33. So is a 10-minute break acceptable? Mike Burrows, you're the man in charge of timing and stuff. So if you'd all like to take a break, do whatever you like, put your screen on blank. Let me just tell you, when you come back, we're going to share a few tips and have another go at evaluations, hopefully hear a few more evaluators. So see you in 10 minutes back here. Thanks.
recommend you leave the screen, switch it off, or at least turn off the video and then go and move around. Good luck.
Right, do the next evaluation.
Can't hear you, Carl. You're muted if you wanted to talk. If you want to talk, you need to unmute.
I don't know if you saw, Mike, that Harry's left the building. He's had to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that one person's dropped out. Gemma dropped out, but she's back again. I find it quite difficult.
I said, I'm sorry, I was like, didn't take it with Grace on Monday. And he's like, no, don't worry about it.
Because everything we do is habit forming, so if you get people doing something a few times, you can...
Did you realise, Larry, that you left your microphone on?
Yeah, could you answer in at the missus? Nope.
Oh, well, I think, Carl, we would have done well if we only lost one at half time.
He left because of the feedback, I think. And the reason why I didn't actually do the evaluation, my video was juttering across the state. So she, at one moment, she was there. Then she was there. Right, so.
What's causing that then, Carl?
Jill's upstairs on Zoom as well, maybe. It's just the bandwidth.
Oh, well.
Yeah, mine did that to some extent, Carl, but not as
It was
bad as
everything.
yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like every 4 seconds were cut out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. She was up there.
Evaluate.
And
I had the same issue, probably because I'm also controlling the timer screen as well on an iPad.
Oh.
That's a shame.
That's a good speech, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a different speech to her semi-final speech. Is that the rules still?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was from about 3 years ago, I think. I just thought I wasn't sure if I liked it when I first saw it, but of course all these speeches, they kind of grow on you, and when you start analysing them, you realise what they're doing so well. Who was it said about you have to have Richard mentioned you have to name Toastmasters to win,
and you have to go on the journey.
Well, to answer your question, I even tried that once and I still didn't win.
Yeah, but you're slagging it off, though.
I wanted to do. I said, look out, the Toastmasters police are here listening. So let's be careful.
One bit of feedback to everyone who actually did do an evaluation. You all did the evaluation within the 2.5 minutes that you're allowed. One person got to 2 minutes, 28 seconds, but otherwise everybody was inside the time limit allowed. Well done.
Oh, I was lucky.
I didn't write down who did what in what time.
Okay. Mike, when you do the recording of this, what happens when everyone goes into their groups? Does it just carry on recording the home screen?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, George. I think you can actually separate out the breakout rooms.
I only asked because I was chasing the cat around while everyone was in the breakout groups.
Yeah, I went on a walkabout as well, as you probably noticed.
I think they've got everyone back now. Good. A little bit over. Okay, so hope you enjoyed your break and thank you for coming back. Let's get started on the second half now. Then let's have a look. Just get my slides back to where I want them to be and say, ta-da! Welcome back. And now for some sharing. Mike, can you be my my conscience on this one? You can see that, Mike Burrows?
Yep.
Okay, that'll do. So, time for some sharing now. So, what I'm going to do is just share with you some of the basics and some things that we talk about a lot, but we don't always go into a great deal of detail. We don't have, we could use the next 4 slides, we could probably discuss for about 4 hours, but I want to get a little bit more evaluation in. So we'll go at a reasonable pace. And if you've got any questions, then shout out and we'll stop. But I just want to start off with things that one notices when one's listening or observing a speech. And I thought we would start with something that we very seldom talk about, which is what kind of speech is it? So we've just seen a competition speech, which isn't on that list. But as you can see, there are different types of speeches and different reasons in the real world as well for giving a speech. Really useful if you can identify which of those it is to start your evaluation by being aware and making comments around whether the person that was delivering the speech actually delivered that objective, I guess, to make it educational or inspirational and so on. And finally, the final point there, if it's a manual speech, did it meet the objectives? I'm not going into too much Toastmastery world today, but I will touch on it as we are Toastmasters. And what I would say, and I'm sure you would all agree, is that it is best practice when you're doing a Toastmasters evaluation to, as the evaluator, connect with the speaker beforehand, have the speaker's title, the objectives, their personal objectives, as well as the speech objectives. It gives you a head start with your evaluation. So that's one to get us started with. Any comments around that one before we move on? Okay. So let's have a talk about the structure. A couple of these things were mentioned already. So we often talk about the structure of a speech, but very rarely go into what the structures are. There are far more than this, but these are the ones that we will most often see. So you've got the past, the present, and the future, which I think is what you just saw on the World Championship video, if you recall the story that she told. Equally, I guess you could argue there was a logical sequence of events. And I think Brenda mentioned bookending. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's where you, if you can imagine a bookcase and you've got either end the same book. So you start off with a thought or a story or a scene, and you end up at the same place at the end, but making sense from where you were at the beginning, which is kind of what she did as well. Told a story. There was stories within that speech, and I think it's really important to recognize that storytelling, as was mentioned, storytelling, be brave, tell stories, because stories stick, I think they say. And the hero's journey is another structure. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. I know some of you are. The hero's journey being the kind of ordinary person. A challenge comes along, steps out of the ordinary, finds a mentor to train the ordinary person to become a master, and then defeats the foe or the thought that's been hanging over him. It reflects a lot of stories, actually, if you think about Star Wars. Those of you that know the Star Wars thing, like Luke Skywalker meeting his mentor, going on and defeating the dark side. And I won't go into Star Wars too much, but the hero's journey is a cycle. If you ever want to look at the hero's journey, just Google it. It's on there, and there's a map around how you plot your story around the hero's journey. A lot of Toastmasters international speeches are based around the hero's journey. The trick is, folks, for you not to be the hero, but to make someone else the hero of your story. And finally there, a technical problem. So we've got a few engineers in the room, and I believe at a recent competition, one of the questions was about engineers. So a technical problem and solution made easy to understand with no jargon. So a really important piece for out there in the real world, if you've got a technical problem and a solution that's made easy to understand with no jargon, means you engage with your audience and get your point across. So those are some structures of speech. Did anyone want to ask questions or elaborate or offer extra structures? I'm interested to know if anyone does have extra structures, or which ones you prefer maybe. No.
George, I would say it's probably, I have this little little mantra: facts tell, stories sell. And I think that's sort of like, you can actually align that to the speeches as well. So if you tell a story, hopefully it's a true story and it's more relevant to you. So then you can put more feeling and etc. to actually deliver that speech.
Yeah, and thanks, Carl. And you get that connection there, don't you? I think a couple of our speakers said how brave the speaker was when she put that pause in there and asked the audience to, didn't ask, she just gave the audience permission to finish the song. And actually she'd built up a relationship through that speech with her story, so they could relate to her. So you're absolutely right, Carl. Any other thoughts or builds on that before we move on? As I said, we could go into this in a lot more detail. And when we're talking about individual speeches, we do look at the structure and offer advice around structure. If you're ever thinking of entering a competition, you might want to have a look at some of those speeches that are on there. The one we just saw, as David Pintor said earlier, they're all on YouTube, and you can align most of them to one or several of these structures. So you can kind of reverse engineer your speech to make sure that you're delivering to that structure. Mike, have you got any thoughts on that? I know you're very structured in the way you work and operate.
I certainly, I can't think of any additional structures than what you suggested there. But definitely it's very useful to see that type of list presented. To a certain extent, you'll probably find that as you're evaluating, you can try and pigeonhole the type of speech. And as time goes by, you'll get used to identifying those. And so you'll be able to utilize evaluations you've done previously to help you with the one that you're doing currently. Not for the detail of what people say, but the sort of pattern that you might see developing over time when you've seen lots and lots of speeches in Toastmasters.
Thanks, Mike. I hope you didn't mind me drawing you into that, but it's always good to get other people's thoughts. So structure is really important, holds it together. Let's have a look at content. So again, different types of speeches. So persuasive speech content is likely to have research. So for example, if I've got numbers that demonstrate my point or make my point, if I've got quotes from famous people or quotes from authority, and some of you will have heard us talk before about when you bring someone on the stage with you, you quote someone or you use their book, they're there with you, it gives you some gravitas. And real world examples, so examples of when these things have worked previously. And of course the main points are reiterated in a persuasive speech. The second part of that, I've put an informal speech content is more likely to involve anecdotes, stories and jokes, but not exclusively. You can mix these round either way really, because as Carl said, if you tell stories, they stick, don't they? But sometimes you need to consider your audience all the time. Sometimes you'll be in a different environment and you might find it really useful to be flexible. If you're more likely to do an informal speech at Toastmasters, and I have to put my hand up and say that's me, then you get really good at giving informal talks, if you're more used to giving persuasive speeches, if you're selling, or if you're in engineering, or if you're trying to persuade people to take a course of action, then likelihood is you're more likely to be better at giving those types of talks. So maybe we might want to think about mixing them up a little bit. But there's different approaches to different types of speeches, and to identify them as an evaluator and bring that out in your evaluation. Richard, you're an experienced evaluator, Toastmaster and coach. What thoughts have you got around the content and what we use in that context?
Well, yes, you got me thinking looking at that list, George, because persuasion is often aided by leading people through an argument that's made in a fairly simplistic style, so they have to agree with you. And I don't know if any of you have seen Yes Minister, the comedy program. There's an absolutely brilliant illustration of how what's his name, the head of the civil service, gets, by making 5 points, gets someone to agree that national service is essential, and then makes another 5 points, forcing everyone to say national service must never be reintroduced. And if you can do that really well, it's brilliant way of getting a lot of people to agree with you.
Yeah. And I think building on what Richard has said, thank you for helping me there, Richard. And that is that if you practice this stuff at Toastmasters, guess what? It's a safe place to practice, but out there in the real world is where you can use this to really make a difference in your personal life and your work business life. So just some food for thought. Was there something else, Richard?
Yeah, the other thing is jokes. Jokes, I think, are very dangerous, because if you're telling a joke, it's obvious you're telling a joke. And if it goes flat, it's awful.
Yeah, I think the rule there is make sure you're the butt of the joke, really.
Yeah.
A bit like we saw in the, about the, a few of you mentioned it, didn't you, about the eight months rather than we all thought it was going to be 8 years. So yeah, you're quite right. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Richard. Thanks, Mike. Further to that content, we talk about rhetorical devices a lot in Toastmasters, and I've just jotted down a few here. Again, if you want to see more of this, it's all out there in the world. You can Google alliteration or rhetorical devices. Alliteration, Peter Piper picked a pickled peppers. So we get a lot of that in Toastmasters. We like to hear it in threes as well sometimes. We might get them both. Bit of repetition. I've given as an example there, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. I can't sing quite as well as the world champion. But when you repeat something at least 3 times, I guess as it is there, it kind of drives a point home. Similes, home, sweet home. This is a great one, onomatopoeia. I think we use this a lot. We don't always recognize it by that name. Honk, honk is the example I gave there. I think we had an example of onomatopoeia in the speech. Did anyone recognize it or see it? Onomatopoeia is when a word sounds like what you're describing.
I think I caught a few. There's ding ding and boom and pow.
Yeah,
those type of words.
You got one more than I did. I just got ding ding. So well done. So this stuff, it's there. We don't always recognise it. So thanks for sharing that. Was that Alex, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Alex. And again, metaphors. She is a shining star would be a metaphor. So not saying that she is like, but absolute. She is a shining star. I didn't pick up any metaphors in that speech. Did anyone jot down any metaphors in there or notice any? Okay. Well, when you're at home during the week and you're looking at it,
she said an electrifying punch.
An electrifying, yeah. Heavyweight came into the electric. Thank you, David. And finally, hyperbole. I have a million things to do today, so it's like great exaggeration. So that's some of the rhetorical devices that we point out. We often talk about the rule of three as well. So that's kind of picked up in this one as well with let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. I'm going to move on because it's 9 o'clock and I'm mindful that we still want a little bit more practice. So delivery. So this is for me really just share what you notice about the voice. We had some brilliant feedback about voice tone and how when she was excited she sped up and when she wanted to make a point and it was a more serious part of the speech she slowed down, and we noticed that. Her body language was great, wasn't it, in that speech? I think we all noticed it as she used the stage. She went from past to present to future, and she used a lot of, you can't do that in this small screen when we're sat down, but you can use your eyes and you can still use your arms and your hands. And we do find out if you're confident by the way you hold yourself, I guess. So delivery is what you notice. And I'd like to think that we all notice quite a lot of really cool stuff in the way she delivered her speech. Is very animated. Some of you said perhaps a little bit too much. I'd agree with that. You wouldn't in a business meeting see someone standing up on the table and running up and down pretending to be in a boxing fight. But sometimes there's a phrase that I use, which is Toastmasters get real, which is how can you make that work in the real world? And just temper it a little bit, but think about it in this little box that we're in now, how you can use your body. Anybody got any really cool points around body and how you can make it work in this little box of Zoom?
I think it's where you position yourself, isn't it?
Just expand on that for us, Carl.
Well, I'm sitting here, but if I were to stand back like Mo did at the International Speech Contest, you then give yourself a more of a bigger stage to actually perform on. Whereas I'm sitting here, I am stuck here. So going backwards a bit more, you give yourself that, like I said, that wider stage.
Yeah, and I think if you're serious about doing a competition or making a point in a different way or standing out, what's to stop us from taking control of what we look like in our own homes? Thanks, Carl. So the delivery, share what you noticed. I really liked that it was very much, these evaluations were very much, this is what I noticed. And again, we always talk in that third party, don't we? That I noticed that she, and it's easier to do that when she's not in the room as well, isn't it? So we're not going to have the breakout groups because I want to give you an opportunity to evaluate another speech. And I want to show you this speech and give you a couple of minutes to complete your evaluation and see if we can get some, it might be the same evaluators, it might be different evaluators, but I'd like to stop sharing for a moment and change this to another video. So I'm going to show you a video, and what I'd like you to do is just think about what we've just discussed in terms of the things to look out for and what you've learned from those evaluators you've heard already. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity, or some of you an opportunity, to do a couple of minute evaluation. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you to watch this video and make your notes as an evaluator would. And at the end of it, we will have your evaluations. So here is what I'm going to share with you. I'll leave it to Mike Burrows to tell me if you can see this or not, by the way. Mike, it says screen sharing has stopped as the window is closed. Okay, let's have a look at another way of doing it then.
I can see your slide at the moment.
Yeah, okay. I'm not quite... Okay, let's stop sharing a minute. Just bear with me while I find it again. Okay, I'm going to have to just go back to this a minute. Mike Burrows, you're my help here. Can you see this, Mike?
Ramona J. Smith.
Mike, what?
No, I cannot.
Right, so if I close that and come back to it, I think you'll see it because I've had it open previously. Let's try it again.
If you close the PowerPoint presentation, you would be able to copy that link, post it into your internet service, and possibly we could get it that way.
Ramona J.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's try doing that then. Bear with me, everyone.
Ramona J.
Playing the
Smith.
old one. That's not what we want. Okay. Well, it could be worse. I could be at the district final and my IT stuff stops working, which is what happened to one of the speakers this year, unfortunately. Right.
Ramona J. Smith.
Oh, blimey. Right. Okay. So let me just see now if I share with you if that works. Let's have a look at this. Mike, I can't see, I can only see you now, Mike. I don't know what I've done.
It sounds like you've gone into speaker view or something similar.
Okay, how do I get out of that then, Mike?
Top right-hand corner, can you see a little grid square?
Yeah, I've got it. Okay, if everyone bears with us then.
Have you got on your, if you go out of exit full screen, then you can open, you can look somewhere else on your screen. What you need to do is get your YouTube link open in a window on the screen.
Yeah.
Then go to share.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm just going to have a go at doing, Mike. Let's have a look.
Unfortunately, I don't have the link, otherwise I could have shared it on your behalf. But
yeah, okay, well, let's just have one more go at this. David Pintle, can you hear me?
I can.
Did you have that video that you said you had previously? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, just bear with me for a second.
So that would be the one that we saw already. Can you share that with us, David?
Yeah, just trying to find it. Okay.
I'm deliberately not looking at the chat today, by the way. All right.
Can you see it?
Ramona J. Smith.
Yeah.
Right.
Standing.
Thanks,
Still
David.
Standing, Ramona J. Smith.
Times feel like a fight. The punches, jabs, hooks will come in the form of challenges, obstacles, failures. Yet if you stay in the ring and learn from those past fights, at the end of each round, you'll be still standing. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow fighters, can you think of a time when life tried to knock you down? Who was your toughest opponent? Most often, our most challenging opponent is ourselves. Round 1, college. I dropped out of college, not 1, not 2, not 3, the 4 times. I told myself, college isn't for me, and I would never go back. Round 2, marriage. I married my soulmate, the love of my life, my best friend. He was fine too. We were married for 8 long, beautiful, amazing months. You heard right, months, not years. It was like immediately after we said I do, the heavyweight champion came in and delivered an electrifying knockout blow to our vows. Boom! Divorced. Round 3, speaking. In 2015, I competed for the first time in the international speech contest. I won at the club level, I won at the area level, I won at the division level, then the district level was on the way, I was on the road, I was on fire, I was unstoppable. I lost. I was crushed. After going 3 rounds and taking hit after hit, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was down for the count. 6, 7, 8. When was the last time life knocked you down? Who was that lifeline that you reached out to help you stand back up? Was it your family, your friends, or did you hold on to your faith? Maybe you've never been knocked down, but you've seen one of your family members take a devastating blow. Were you the lifeline that they were reaching out to help them stand back up? Were you the coach in the corner saying, get up, stand up? As I gathered all the strength within myself to pick myself back up, stand. Instead of looking into a mirror of defeat, it became a window of possibilities. Got back in the ring. I went back to college, got my degree, and I graduated magna cum laude. After failing 4 times, I was still standing. After my loss at the district level, I'm speaking to you from the World Championship stage. It's a moment. Thank you. Even after suffering loss, I'm still standing. As for my marriage, I'm still in training. I have not yet found Mr. Right, but this is an international convention. And there are thousands of men from hundreds of different countries. So single Toastmasters, even after my divorce, I'm still standing. My challenge to you is to stay in the ring, whether you're a fighter or a coach. If you're on the side of the ring, ding, 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 the fighters and the coaches will raise their hands in victory singing, I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're still standing. Very nice. Stay in that ring. And even after you take a few hits, use what you learned from those previous fights, and at the end of each round, you'll remain still standing. Mr. Pottership.
Okay, we're going to give you 2 minutes now to do your evaluation. You might notice something else that you didn't notice last time, or experience something that you didn't experience last time. You might want to share something that you didn't last time. Just think about what we discussed earlier and what you've learned from the evaluators that spoke earlier. And we'll just give you a couple of minutes. Mike will put the times up. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I've just shared some of the content from the slides we've looked at, if you might find that interesting or useful.
Time's up.
Lovely, thank you for that, Mike. Okay. So you've seen the world champion for the second time. We've had some ideas from other evaluators, and we've had a look at some thoughts around content, structure and delivery. We've got time for 2, possibly 3, if Mike's very strict with the time. Who'd like to go first? Barry? Unmute yourself, Barry, and then you can have a go.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hello, fellow Toastmasters. I've enjoyed listening to the other evaluations. Kenny, Richard, Brenda all made fantastic points. They commented, someone commented on the use of the boxing framework. I thought that was really helpful for the speaker because it gave her a structure she could hang her talk off. And I'm not sure if any of you noticed on that second time round, she pulled the towel out of her jacket and threw it on the ground. That was symbolizing not throwing in the towel. So that was an effective device. In terms of my own comments, what type of speech was this? It was a motivational speech, wasn't it? I certainly felt motivated from her personal story. She had a very strong personal narrative. It was a story of hope, and I think with all great speeches, they're not so much speeches, but they're messages. And she had a very clear message, didn't she, throughout her speech? And it was, stay in the ring, don't give up. No matter what happens to you, keep going. And that was effective because that can resonate with us all, and it gives us, as an audience, something to take away. I thought her physical presence was powerful. When she came onto the stage, she did a power pose. Did any of you notice that? She stood there and she was rooted to the spot. If she had a cape around her neck at that point, it would not have seemed inappropriate because she owned that room, and she immediately set the tone. You couldn't but be captivated by her presence. That was before she even started speaking. Also, she smiled. So as someone else picked up, that's smiling is really, really important because it shows you want to be there, and it shows that you're a nice person and helps your audience engage with you. Just looking back at the language that was used, I thought it was really interesting. I picked up things like alliteration. So thank you for that, George. So she said one of the most common phrases was still standing. That was mentioned about 8 or 9 times. It's read now, so I'll just finish up. And yeah, excellent humor. And like I said, this was less a speech, and it was a message that we could all take away. And I think if you leave your audience with something they can take away, I think that's really powerful. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Barry. Let's give him a big round of applause. Who would like to go next? Put your hand up. Carl is going to brave it. Well done. Thank you, Carl. If you take your mic off, and over to Carl.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. That was a powerful speech. As already described, she walked on the stage in a power pose, and she did engage with the audience with that smile. But what I noticed watching it for the second time is that she engaged at the beginning. Can you think of a time? Halfway through, who was your lifeline? And at the end, we're still standing. So throughout the whole journey of her speech, she pulled the audience in by giving a personal story, which started, I'm not good, I failed again, and I failed for the 3rd time. But then she flipped it round, as we said, on the bookend. But conversely, on the other side is I achieved the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd time. What I found that the commendations, or what I should say, get my words right, is that she said she failed 4 times at college. That's not really a true Toastmaster, is it? Because I would have lied and said 3 times, because it's the power of 3. And she did overdo it on the stage with the arms and all that. We always say you should use your arms, your body, in a meaningful way. So starting again with the punching, very good. But when she was reaching up for that lifeline, it was over dramatized. And what I did spot the second time, which I found really good, was it was the mirror of defeat. and a window of probability. The mirror stopping, the window opening to go through. So overall, a great speech, and I think she could win the World Championship. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks very much. Okay. Again, I lied. I said 2. We've got time for a third. Who would like to have a go? Who hasn't gone yet? Veronica? Was that a yes? Give me a thumbs up if it's a yes, Veronica. Okay, when you unmute, we're ready for Veronica's evaluation. Over to you, Veronica.
Thank you, George. Hello, fellow Toastmasters. I mean, have you ever seen a speech where the audience is singing? I didn't. Ramona delivered amazing motivational speech, and she proved her strength in several areas. She was very strong in her voice. Her voice was very clear. She was using very simple language so we could all understand, and it was delivered with the resonance in her voice, with the strength in her voice, accompanied with pauses at the appropriate places, so everybody could easily follow and everybody had the time to feel the strength. She was also very good in her gestures. Her gestures were on spot. They were accompanying the speech, accompanying the emotions in the speech very nicely. And she had, and all of this put together, managed to get amazing connection with the audience. With her first entrance into the stage, she was laughing. And she was telling us, I'm going to have a good time, and you're going to have a good time. And she was right. Me personally, I had an amazing time. To speak a bit about her structure, for me, she posed the problems using magic of 3. She proposed her personal experience in 3 problems. Then she told us how the attitude of staying in the ring and fighting helped her through the problems. And at the end, she very nicely demonstrated that the goal isn't to resolve it and to get to the happy end, but the end goal is to not stop fighting. She had a very nice call back to her previous message, to her initial message at the end. And overall, it was an amazing speech, and I felt very motivated to keep fighting. Thank you very much.
Okay, well done. I don't know about you, I just want to clap like normal. I don't know, this doesn't work really. I want to make some noise. Yay. God, I'm like my 9-month-old grandson. He just learned how to do this every time he sees a football or a toy. So tonight's been like a bit of a toy for me, really. We had a go, we had a play with stuff, we've learnt some new tricks. I have anyway. Do you know what? I've really, really enjoyed this evening. And I said to you at the beginning that you'll learn more from each other than you learn from me. And I think that's true. I've learned loads from you. So thank you for everyone that spoke. Before we finish, do you remember at the beginning I asked you to write down on a piece of paper from 0 to 5 where you thought you were with your evaluation skills? I don't want you to share that with us, but that's what I wrote down on mine, 0 to 3.5. So I reckon I'm probably about 3 3/4 after tonight. So thank you for all the learnings and sharings. I hope you enjoyed it. Just before I wrap up, I do hope you enjoyed it. And I speak to enough of you one-to-one anyway, but before I go, I'd just like to say thank you to Mike for helping out and getting the IT stuff going. So a big thank you to Mike. I'd also like to thank David Pintor, without whom we wouldn't have had the video the second time. And that was my big reveal. I was going to show you the same thing twice. So thank you, David. Thank you very much. Just goes to show that this stuff doesn't just happen. It is a great team. So here's the thing. You learnt more from each other than you learnt from me, and probably you learnt from the world champion. So we've got the skills and the experience and the knowledge in the club. And I hope that we use it moving forward with our speeches and our evaluations. Thank you very much for being a great team and a great audience this evening. And I'm going to hand back over now to Mike Burrows to do any club business. Thanks once again. Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much, George. That's been a fantastic evening. I feel really guilty that I wasn't able to join in with the evaluation, but with timing and trying to ensure that everything else was working okay, I didn't really feel that it was sensible to try. Now, there are some announcements for those of us who are members of Northavon Speakers Club. The first one is to remind you that if you have not paid your dues already for the next 6 months, you need to pay your dues to the club account by preferably a couple of days before the last day of the month. That way you'll give me time to be able to make the payment on your behalf to Toastmasters International. And just a reminder, we're paying a reduced amount of £40 for the next 6 months, not £60 that would be normal. And that's due to the fact that we're not paying at all for a meeting room at the moment. I mean, we might already be doing so individually with mortgages and rent or whatever. However, we haven't got to pay for the meeting room where we would normally get together. And it's likely that it won't happen until well into next year, the way things are going. Another thing is we're looking for people to volunteer to help out with club contests. Our club contest is on the, if I get this right, the 15th of October. No, sorry, the 1st of October, beg your pardon. We're having the club contest on the 1st of October. But due to the fact that there's this heavy burden on the members, and we don't get that many members attending regularly our club meetings, we have a major problem manning the event with all the roles that take place. So what I've devised is a scheme whereby we can run with slightly less people, but hopefully with people from other clubs. And you'll all have been sent an email about it. Please volunteer where you can for roles. There are no restrictions other than to take on a role, you must be a fully paid up member of the club. And that is particularly the case if you're going to compete. You must pay up before the end of the month so that you are a paid up member when you get into the meeting on the 1st of October. The last thing I want to mention is this is one of a short series of 2 workshops next Thursday, which is a regular meeting night for 2 adjacent clubs, Bath Spa and Bath Spa and Bristol Central. So there's a chance that we won't have quite as many people attend for Gareth McHale's humorous speaking workshop. But everybody is welcome to attend. But I think I'm going to have to try and find, to be fair, an alternative Zoom host for that night, because I really should be attending Bath Spa Toastmasters, where I play Zoom host as well. So bear that in mind. We need an experienced Zoom host for next Thursday. And I can think of 2 people in the club that have done it before. One of them is here, that's Alex. And the other possibility is Mel King, who's not here with us tonight. If either of those cannot do it, please get in touch with me if you want to know how to do it, and I can go through the ropes with whoever it is that wants to take on the role of Zoom host. The last thing to mention is that Bristol Central on Sunday evening have also a workshop which is going to cover, I think it's covering table topics and humorous speech and it is going to be Gareth McHale. I saw a finger go up then from Gemma. You want to just say something about it, Gemma, please?
No, I was just affirming what you're saying. You're completely right. It's table topics and humorous speech.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have nothing more to say. Thank you everyone for coming along this evening. And I can see that Carl would like to say something. So please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I just want to say that you mentioned about your volunteers for the competition to support it, but also we need people who want to do a humorous speech contest as well. We've got 2 people at the moment. That's myself and David. So more the merrier and all that. So come on board. Let's make it a fantastic evening. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I saw another hand go up. Was that you, Kenny?
No.
Okay, sorry. Oh, Barry, yes.
Sorry, I missed that. When is the competition?
Northaven's competition is on the 1st of October. And Bath Spas is on the 15th of October. And the 8th, I think, is Bristol Central.
And Vardeep, our president, just sent out an email to everyone saying that the area contest is on the 25th of October. That's just been confirmed by our area director, Ryan Jones.
That's a Sunday. Yeah. Okay. If anybody wants to stay and chat, have a drink with me, feel free. Sorry, I can't give you one. But thank you everyone for coming along and attending. It's been a great evening, and I wish you a good night's sleep after that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, you always pull a pint out at the last second. Do you have it poured before? Or
Yeah.
do you have a little fridge underneath which you...
He's got a pint pixie. That's right.
It's on tap, isn't it?
I just pour myself a glass during the break, and then try and resist the temptation to drink it on screen in the middle of people speaking. So, yes.
You should do it every time. You notice that?
Yeah, that's why I laugh.
Is it not warm though by now? It would be warm in my house.
He's a real Algon, isn't he?
Oh, okay.
There isn't that big a problem. If it were lager, that may be a different story. But it comes out of my utility room, which is fairly well shaded, so it's reasonably cool.
So I'd just like to say hello to Kenny. I didn't get a chance to say hello to you before. Obviously, Mohammed, thank you for turning both up. I hope you enjoyed the evening. It's a different evening to normal because normally we have 3 speeches and then we have the evaluation. So you know how to put evaluation together. So you're halfway there already. So how did you find it, Kenny?
Great evening, really informative. Yeah. And there's a real skill in putting a speech together. I know that. I have a friend died a few years ago, and I had the misfortune to actually speak about her life. And it was kind of rambling, and it was okay, and it was funny. It was not bad. I managed to wing it, but really, if I'd kind of known about Toastmasters, I could have given my friend a real, commemorative speech that people would have remembered. So it's great. I'm glad I'm part of this. Thank you all for tonight. It's been terrific, and I'd like to go to other ones. So if you've got my details, I'm just at the kind of exploring of where I go, which one I go to.
Right. So are you local to Bristol, or you?
Yeah, I'm right in Bristol, I'm at Clifton, so I'm right in the heart.
All right. Well, it's not really the heart, is it, Clifton? It's just the posh end.
That's the posh end, yeah. yeah. I'm in my man cave. I've got a room in Clifton, so I don't actually own a house or anything like that, but I do have my man cave. I quite like it. It's good. It's a good area. It's all right.
because we did send you the literature and all that, and we say you're more than welcome to turn up 3 times, and then we would ask if you'd want to join or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've just changed our pricing policy for the last 6 months, where it says £60. I think 6 into 40 doesn't really go, does it, Mike? So I think it's all pro rata if you join, plus there's a signing on fee.
Yeah, it works out at £6.66 per month, and there's a joining fee that's also been reduced, and that's at £15. So it's a great time to join, and I can assure you that it's highly unlikely you could get anywhere near the supportive atmosphere going to a professional speech training system. Many years ago, I did one. It lasted for 10 two-hour meetings spread over a few weeks.